Swallowing our pride is one of the most important things we can do as humans. The posture of humility is rare to find, and it is an upside-down approach of how our world currently operates. You are listening to the Work-Life Eubiosis podcast with your host, Charleston Edwards. If this is your first time here, welcome. My goal is simple, to bring harmony and balance to this world, starting with the family. There is so much more to life than the 9 to 5, and this show is designed to bring you inspiration, motivation, and practical solutions to bring balance and joy back to your life. Work-life balance is not a myth, it's a choice. Themes on this show range widely between faith, family rhythms, work, and lifestyle philosophies. You will also hear burning ladder essays submitted by our community of friends and listeners who ditched the rat race, beat burnout to pursue a more balanced and purposeful life. My hope is that this show and the stories shared will provide encouragement, motivation, and will provide some ideas that will be valuable to you on your journey to work-life freedom. So let's dive into today's episode. If you've been around the eubiosis community for a while, you are probably used to seeing the many darts that I throw at our culture. The darts are typically symbols of pride through what and whom we treasure or idolize. I believe our culture could get a much-needed facelift if we embrace the virtue of humility. As I was preparing for today's podcast, I wrote a piece that just aired out all of my frustrations. The title would have been My Beef, Axes to Grind, and Bones to Pick with Culture. The goal was to shine the biggest light possible on the dark, corrupt corners of our culture, from music to politics to social media. The stars had also aligned with all that was happening to some of our world's elites in the media this past week. This would have hammered the points home. It took a humbling conversation with my wife to realize that my posture was an issue of burnout. However, this burnout is not related to workplace burnout, it's cultural burnout, which is being sick and tired of the corruption and adultery of our society. So you're getting a different iteration today that will have some soft jabs and some sharp words, but it will not be my full axe to grind. My grievances in raw form are not healthy, not for me, nor for you. This is a daily struggle for me. As some of you know, I have strong opinions about our society. Authenticity is what's needed in our society, but how we respond can't be just as toxic and snobby. It must be with some level of love, patience, and humility. But it goes deeper than that. We have to come to the table with solutions and fewer complaints. We also have to come to grips that some things, if not all things, we just can't change and must be left up to God. We have to be brave enough to look at ourselves in the mirror and look at the logs in our own eyes before ever making a criticism. Lastly, we have to examine our hearts and motives to search for the purity that we so desperately desire. Humility versus pride is a wrestling match for all of humanity. With power, prestige, and promotion comes an additional badge called pride. We can examine any history book and see where pride has caused conflict or prematurely corrupted pretty much all cultures. As innocent as it seems to flash our credentials and proud moments all over the internet, being prideful can take us off our paths of true purpose. Being prideful can lead us to the no place of prejudice. Pride divides us. We can always justify our judgments, but it's not our place to judge any person in this world. This is my humble pie that I am still eating. Webster's definition of pride is to have satisfaction with our successes. I would add an asterisk to this definition that pride is stubbornness, selfish, greed, control, and it pollutes our sincerest of our purest efforts. Pride ignores wisdom. Pride teaches us to chase success while neglecting the values of our homes, health, and faith. But I get it. We cannot become stagnant and not care about our natural growth. Success is a measure of growth that we need. We can have successful pursuits in education, successful careers, successful families, or just plain successful days. But the last thing we ever want is not to feel a sense of accomplishment in our activities. It's natural to take pride in what we do, but the danger occurs when we boast with symbols of accomplishment. Pride goes before the fall. Humility comes before honor. There's one section of my original article that survived my dumpster fire. It was about the movie American Fiction. My wife and I watched this movie a few weeks ago, and we were quite amused by the main character, Monk, who was an author. Monk was highly frustrated with the ridiculous books that were flying off the shelf, and he condemned American culture. In Monk's frustration, he went out of character and wrote a book that could better resonate with society. This was all to blend into the culture in order to poke fun at how ridiculous people could be in their beliefs. The movie ends with Monk's inauthentic scheme backfiring, ironically with a firing squad taking him down, or that's what the movie wanted the viewer to believe. The true ending was with Monk standing in the middle of a Hollywood movie set, in its own poetic way of saying that this was all an act, a dream, and not real. This is American fiction. Monk's pride led him down the road of losing his authenticity. Monk also got derailed from his purpose, his talent, and his way of making change. Monk's character turned dark and he lost his joy. He wanted success, but he chose the wrong road of control to get it. His efforts were meaningless because of pride. The American Fiction storyline connects to another angle of why we burn out, not just corporately, but culturally. I saw myself in Monk. I stand for values like pure motives and authenticity, but it's so easy to get caught up in trying to please our peers and our managers and the crowds that we take on fictitious characters or jobs that don't align with our purposes. The place of being fake is dark, and it prevents us from being light and bright. When we become culturally fried, this opens up Pandora's box to many more questions. What do we do with success? To what lengths would we go to get success? How do we treat other people who have different experiences or even different purposes in life? How do we act towards a culture that we vehemently disagree with? Do we even recognize that everyone has a different purpose and therefore is motivated differently in this world? What happens when our symbols of success on our social profiles make us feel more important or less qualified? And back to the primary question, how do we remain humble in the midst of a dark culture? Monk was asking all these questions in his pursuit of excellence and a way to pay his bills. In his frustration, he took matters into his own hands. This had severe consequences. How we respond when we are frustrated matters a lot. When we think we have all the answers, we have to reel it back in and realize that we actually don't. God will humble us. Our responses to our tests in life make up who we are and who we are becoming. With every breath we take, we are evolving and growing older, and hopefully wiser as well. But it's in this dilemma where we must choose curiosity over control, humility over pride, even in our growth. But we don't always get that right. Let's look at a well-known biblical figure named Moses. His claim to fame was that he was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Before this epic assignment, he had multiple encounters in his life that gave us clues to his purpose: to rescue the oppressed. Moses' resume was filled with rescue efforts, and ironically, being rescued as a newborn baby by Pharaoh's daughter. If Moses had a LinkedIn profile, it would show a history of instinctually taking matters into his own hands to protect the innocent. Moses, after pleading to not accept God's next job for his life, eventually relinquished. Moses successfully led his native people out of Egypt, millions. But in doing this, Moses was often walking the fine line of workplace burnout and was frequently frustrated with the Israelites through their 40-year journey in the wilderness. In this frustration with the adultery of the culture and the constant complaining, he let pride get in his way, and he ignored God's instruction when he was to display God's glory in providing water. Moses knew what would work because he had struck the rock before to produce water. So he took matters into his own hands in frustration. This was the wrong and prideful response. Similar to Monk in American fiction, he took matters into his own hands. And here's the point. We all have a choice to make when we are frustrated with our culture, angered by beliefs that don't align with ours, or by the brokenness of our institutions. This frustration can be with our next-door neighbors as well. But a response in humility versus a response in pride would not only keep the peace, but will nurture and grow maturity. The choice isn't always to ignore corruption or complaints, as we're all created for different purposes and assignments. But in our choices to respond to our culture, our posture must not deviate from our purpose within God's will. We must keep our lights burning, and that means to remain humble. This episode is brought to you by Own Your 5 to 9, an organization committed to freeing families of the rat race and burnout. Every organization has a leader, mission, and a set of values that drives the organization. But this is commonly missed in the most important organization in the world, the family. An organization has one mission for how it will impact the world. Why not the family? An organization goes into strategic planning to align its values, mission, and projects. Why not the family? Whose Home, a strategic planning guide for families, is a workbook and a tool needed in all households. Whose Home takes a strategic planning approach with 10 guided exercises to define your core family values, family mission, and tools to operationalize how your family does life together. If your family is facing big decisions, Whose Home is for you. If you're considering a career pivot, Whose Home is for you. If you desire more intentionality and harmony in your home, Whose Home is for you. Create a healthy culture, not a hustle culture, at home. Visit ownyour5to9.com to claim your copy today. I'm no better than Monk or Moses. I'm a flawed human being. We are all flawed. However, it's in these flaws that we can find and embrace humility. It's with humility that we understand that we all have value to add. We aren't all called to be a Moses or a Monk, but we are called to shine our lights uniquely and to do our best to protect that light in a culturally dark society with humility. We don't have control over how this world turns. We have a wilderness to walk through. When we think we have control, we are often humbled. When we feel that we are better skilled experienced, or morally better than someone else, we lose perspective. We lose the much-needed sense of humility, respect, and empathy for the millions of other people in this world who do not think the same way. We lose our light, we lose our sight, we lose our way, and we lose our joy. Life can be generalized as a series of wilderness experience before we fully experience the promised land. But in that walk through the wilderness, a spoonful of humility is 10 times sweeter than a bowl of pride. Humility is a posture of learning and also a posture of love, a posture of helping someone in need, a posture of listening. This is our light to shine. Humility is a countercultural approach to life, and it's a surefire way out of cultural burnout. Humility's mission is that we don't need to be the leader or the know-it-all. That's power. So how can we remain humble, loving, and light? Here are a few self-reflecting questions to reset my mindset the next time I'm feeling frustrated and burned out by the culture. I hope that you can find these as helpful as well. How do I treat people who have different backgrounds and experiences from me? Am I curious or am I quick to criticize? Am I showing up in this world with negative energy or positive energy? Do I have the right people around me to tell me the truth lovingly and sincerely? In my frustrations with society, is it coming from a place of fear or control? What is a better way to make sure that other voices are valued and heard? If I don't meet a goal or get the promotion, land the deal, or get the applause, am I still fulfilled? Am I still filled with joy? If not, have I lost my sense of purpose, or have I spent too much time focused on the outcome that I don't have control over? Is my purpose to gain status, profit, prestige, and followers? Or is it to genuinely help and serve? And finally, are my words, thoughts, and actions more helpful or hurtful? At the heart of humility is a place of authenticity. Authenticity is not a place to be prideful. It's to be vulnerable and real. Authenticity is to be truthful but sensitive. Authenticity is an humble place of acknowledging that we are far from being perfect. When we master humility, we can release the pursuit of perfect outcomes to hold on tighter to being our best selves. This mindset shift just may be the way out of overwhelm and out of a state of burnout. Thank you for listening to the Work Life Eubiosis podcast, part of the Work Life resources created by Own Your 5 to 9. I hope that you have found encouragement and a few ideas to strengthen your journey to purpose, freedom, and balance. Have you overcome burnout and found a new way of life? Millions around the globe are still at the risk of burnout and losing it all, and your story may be the one that sparks not only a dream, but action. Visit ownyour5to9.com for more information and to submit your story. While you're there, join the Work Life Eubiosis newsletter and receive additional resources weekly right to your inbox. If you enjoy this podcast, take time to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Share it with a friend or a loved one. Remember, the most important organization in the world is the family. Let's do our part to strengthen it. Thank you for listening.